The second Congress of Integrative Medicine in November 2018 saw integrative medical doctors, practitioners and suppliers converge at the Lord Charles Hotel in Somerset West for the latest inspiring knowledge on supporting the body for optimal health. The best international and local experts unpacked this pioneering science addressing the chronic disease scourge of our time, leaving delegates excited and affirmed on their chosen path to not only relieve suffering but resolve the root causes, nutrition and lifestyle challenges that underpin most disease presenting today. Fascinating new supplements, treating devices and natural medicines were also displayed, experienced and discussed.
Good morning everybody. Wonderful to see you all here. It's really been quite a journey from the first Congress which Dr. Bernard Rom organised last year, which I think a lot of you attended and know about. Between then and now, a lot has happened, a lot of changes have happened, a lot of upsets, but it's really wonderful to be here and to see you all here and to see you all finally come together.
Focus on dysfunction. Systems function as one whole, always functions as one whole. The whole person is always involved. Matter, energy, information, right and left brain equal status. I often say that even in the sick person, there's more health than there is ill health. We're always dealing with mystery, always dealing with complexity, and we need to keep that in mind. We tend to focus on what's measurable and then forget about the awesome complexity and what we can't know. We leave out the person, the journey, the subjective, the art of medicine, the complexity, the spirit and soul of medicine. Let's not make that mistake.
We're very good at acutes in Western medicine. You break your leg, we're fabulous. Chronic disease, not so much. And so one of the things I'd like to talk about are ACEs. And I didn't know always about ACEs. And once I learned about it, I said, what the heck? How did I not know about ACEs when I was a young trainee? And what they are, these adverse childhood events that can totally upregulate cortisol and changes kids' epigenetics. And these events that can happen in childhood range from anything from like bullying, chronic disease, divorce, death, and what these changes do is affect health outcomes in adults. Everything from increased rates of cardiovascular disease, autoimmunity, and cancers. I've been a lot into epigenetics, understanding the way the food affects our epigenes. Two things that are now on the forefront of medicine, and we look at it in the book, are epigenetics and dysbiosis, abnormal microbiome. And food and all the things in food are affecting epigenetics and henceforth gene expression. And so this is what we'll need to be looking at as we go forward. So if my patients don't go organic, it's unlikely I'm going to get them better. If I do get them better, the improvement is not sustained if they don't change their diet. Everybody has a freaking iPhone. I said, take a picture of what's in your pantry. I want to see it. And I said, then I want you to take a picture of your poop. I want to see your kids' poop. I don't need a GI Coreflex for $800 to show me the poop is abnormal. And yes, I found that organic foods are more healthy. Imagine eating foods without chemical inputs being healthier. It should be the Journal of Common Sense.
I think we're sitting with a genetic predisposition and a vulnerable population. And if we could individualize things more, we would really be on a better level. So this blanket approach and generalization and the inclusion of lots of toxicity is really not beneficial. The judgment that we're getting for natural things, what we see in autism and the research there is we have very positive outcome. If we class all these people who are very dissimilar together and we say, okay, this treatment worked for them, if we have an outcome of about 30% success, we have a good outcome.
So to me, one of the most important places to stop is the metabolic disorder. Because when we see these disturbed biomedical processes, the chemical synthesis of enzymes and neurotransmitters and impaired detoxification processes that we need to support, and dysregulation of just our normal biomedical or biochemical mediators. So this is where epigenetics plays a huge part, and we see the transfer of epigenetic processes from generation to generation, which we also need to consider in our approach.
The endocannabinoid system is basically a homeostatic controller in our human bodies. So to put it basically, it is the conductor of the ongoing symphony that is happening in our bodies. It connects the brain to the body and the body to the brain, but it can also disconnect your emotion from your perceptions. And that's often chronic pain. It's when that emotion and perception come together that the pain actually flares up. If we can break that apart, maybe we've got a chance. The endocannabinoid list has grown since, and so besides an andamide and the 2-AG, you get melodic ether, palmethanol, ethynylamine, verodamine, polyethanol amide, and then even one of the terpenes now, beta-carotene, is being seen as an cannabinoid because of its binding to the CB2 receptor. The endocannabinoid receptors is basically the most abundant protein receptor in our brain and the rest of our organ systems. So just taking a look at, these are now your endocannabinoids, the ligands. There's various receptors, so there's G protein coupled receptors, you get ligand gating ion channels, nuclear receptors that it works on, and the various effects that you get from it. So from mood, anti-inflammatory, insulin release, controlling energy, analgesia, neuroprotection. So the hypothesis is basically that in certain individuals we've got a shortage in that endocannabinoid system. So people with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, your fibromyalgia patients, and your migraine sufferers, and they might benefit from supplementation with phytocannabinoids. So that brings us to our phytocannabinoids. So the phytocannabinoids is basically your cannabis plant. There's over 480 different chemical compounds in a cannabis plant. At the moment, more than 66 classified cannabinoids. And we basically have been studying two, THC and CBD. What we do know about these two is that they are promiscuous or dirty. They interact with numerous different receptors. They can basically act as agonists, partial agonists, and antagonists. And they've got a biphasic action. So basically they can upregulate or downregulate systems.
All diseases have a common cause, and the body's ability to heal. Only the body can heal itself. You can put in your hormones, you can put in whatever, you can put in your anti-inflammatory and all, but only the body can heal itself. Most of what we put into the body is drugs or toxic. What is a virus? Because you have to deal with this disease that is a viral disease, and we have to know the enemy. What is this enemy? Then I finally wound up to find out that, or to get in my head, that a virus is not a living organism. There is nothing living about a virus. So everything that I learned in medical school seemed to be going down the drain. Because a virus, for an entity to be living, it must exhibit metabolism within itself. And the virus does not have any metabolic structure. So why have we been calling a virus a microorganism? It's not an organism. It's just a noxious particle. It's just a polypeptide bond of RNA DNA origin. So you can easily inactivate a virus. Now we talk about inactivating a virus rather than killing a virus. You cannot kill something that does not have life. So we were able to get that on a national scale, that they should start using ordinary soap. Ordinary soap inactivates the virus. But we cannot put ordinary soap into the Ebola patient. They will die. So we had to find another way of doing it. So we went to ozone.
As you already know, estrogen is on just about everything in terms of its receptors. Estrogen is regulating everything. We definitely want a metabolically healthy woman, and estrogen is about every function in the body, and it coordinates, as we'll see, with reproductive functions. Now this becomes a problem if you try to wipe out reproductive functions, which is what we mostly do. We're the only creature on this planet that tries to control reproduction. And we want to mate, but we don't want to create a baby. So what are we going to do? We do things like give birth control pills. What are they? Endocrine disruptors. It's not like you can destroy the reproductive function and not have a serious impact on everything else because it's all interwoven. There actually are 3 receptors for estrogen. There is alpha and beta and membrane. It turns out that alpha and beta also have membrane receptors along with the membrane receptor, and these are very complex. They actually interact with each other. So if you have a lot of beta, it actually downregulates alpha. Now, where might that actually be significant? Well, as you now know, estriol is predominantly beta. Not 100%, but predominantly beta. Now, estradiol goes into both. Okay, it makes, it makes estradiol, and of course some gets converted into estrone and estriol. So there's plenty of estriol, enough, whatever you need in the reproductive years. That's why you don't have a placenta, need to make more estriol. So it turns out that in pregnancy, women have less autoimmune problems usually. You've known that, right? That often they go into a remission.
The real change is when we change the basic structure of medicine and education. This new paradigm has to be based on empiricism. It has to be based on an entirely flat structure. Medicine of the future will be flat. There are no great masters. There'll be a medical doctor, an oncologist, a chiropractor, a herbalist. We're all going to sit around and discuss patients because patients are number one, not specialists. And that will make medicine cheaper. Where in this basic premise of scientific approaches, the method of science, you don't see anything written here about double-blind randomized controlled trials. Why? Because most of them don't work. Science is a process, not a thing. And this is important because we tend to think about science as a thing. Scientism is a thing. It's a dogmatism that believes that we can find answers out there that confirm our bias. All research these days in medical schools is done based on an outcome. They know what they want, so they design the research. It is not independent. Medicine is an industry. It is a vertically integrated monopoly. You can't fight integrated vertical monopolies. They determine what is the proper medical education. They control the medical schools that dictate these are the ways that you're learning medicine. The hospitals are controlled by this.
In the U.S., there are over 90,000 compounds approved for commercial use, most of which have not been tested for neurotoxicity, developmental toxicity, any type of toxicity, particularly not just in normal healthy people, but in the aging population, the immunocompromised population, and in children, okay? Every day, the U.S. imports about 45 million pounds of synthetic chemicals. Each year, about 1,000 new chemicals are put into use. 15 new polymers are patented in the U.S. every week, and only 5 chemicals have ever been banned in the U.S. under the Toxic Substance Control Act. We've been evolving as human beings for over 2.5 million years, and we've had over 90,000 chemicals added into our lives, be it air quality, water quality, personal care products, in just the last 200 years. And that's a lot of change for the human body to experience. We now know that genetic factors are not the major cause of chronic disease. And I'm going to tell you why. Many of the chemicals that are involved in our lives do affect us in very intricate ways through the hormone system, the endocrine system of the human body. And so we need to think about how that plays out in various diseases that are endocrine related. So this slide is very important because it talks about just the epidemiology of some of the endocrine-related diseases, disorders, cancers, and some of the neurodevelopmental disorders that are also rising in our country in terms of autism and autism spectrum disorder. We talked yesterday about 1 in 34 from the new data from the CDC for autism, decreased sperm quality and quantity, hypospadias, a lot of young boys being born with abnormalities. Testicular cancer is enormously on the rise. We have thyroid cancer, I mentioned that this morning, papillary thyroid cancer, especially among teenagers, is on the rise, preterm birth. So even diabetes, obesity, these are endocrine-related diseases that are very much involved with the endocrine system, which many of these chemicals affect at very low levels, very low doses over time.
So polycystic ovary syndrome is the most common endocrine disorder of reproductive age women. But in reality, as we'll see, it actually starts like so many things in utero. And you can actually diagnose it in childhood at around age 6 or 7 by getting a lab test called adiponectin, which in India is as high as almost 40% have some degree of PCOS. It's huge. And it affects, like I said, women of all ages. And what they're treating a lot of these women with in pregnancy is metformin. Metformin is an endocrine disruptor. This was discovered by an environmental scientist at the University of Wisconsin who found that the fish were having weird things happening to their genitalia. And they didn't know what was going on. So she, by testing, by process of elimination of all the pharmaceuticals that were in the rivers and lakes, found that it was metformin. And there's been many, many articles. You can Google on PubMed, and you'll see many articles showing the wildlife is heavily impacted as an endocrine disruptor by all this metformin because it's so commonly prescribed that it passes right through the water treatment plants into the water. There is a recent study published of women with PCOS who were on metformin throughout pregnancy that their children by age 4 were metabolically unhealthy. They had much more body fat when they matched them. They were already metabolically unhealthy and becoming obese, and yet it's not stopping. So basically, their receptors are not accepting estrogen. So it doesn't matter if you make estrogen, if it doesn't get received by the receptor, it doesn't create the needed effect. So women with PCOS don't make estrogen well, and their receptors don't accept estrogen well. So they're living in an estrogen deficiency state. That's why they have all those metabolic problems that look like menopause. It's estrogen again. The lack of estrogen to do the things that estrogen should do. The thing that makes this look so tricky is that you have the androgen issue because you have functioning ovaries and the brain keeps saying, give me estrogen, and it keeps pushing out the LH to make more testosterone with the goal to make more estrogen, which isn't happening. So we know that from studies that if you do in mice, if you do estrogen receptor alpha blockout mice, so that they don't actually have an estrogen receptor, they immediately become insulin resistant and that in their livers, and they start producing lots of glucose, just like women with PCOS. We've talked about mitochondria. There are estrogen receptors in the mitochondria. They're not working properly, so women with PCOS can't burn fat. Many of them bioaccumulate so much fat, so it's like living in a sea of like a resource for energy. Like you have a cabin in the wilderness, and you've got lots and lots of trees and logs, and it's snowing, and it's really cold, and you only have one fireplace, and it's broken.
Everyone familiar with the term bioidentical and non-bioidentical? It means the exact same formula as the body makes. As far as we know, there's only two sources of it. It's yam, soy. Yam and soy. In South Africa, we tend to get both from our hormones both from yam and soy because we source mainly from the east. In the US, it's mainly yam because the soy is so genetically modified. So that's the only two sources we know of bioidentical hormones. Non-bioidentical is still natural, it's not synthetic. But non-bioidentical are typically equine extracts. So what they do is they take the horse urine and they synthesize out the hormones and they make that into the birth control pills and the menopause treatment pills. And because it's equine extracts, there are many metabolites of them. For example, estrogen has got 40 metabolites that we know does not clear from the body. It sits around for a long time in the tissues, giving you your clotting and cardiovascular risk, giving you breast cancer risk, etc. Therefore, the older gynaes would say, take your hormones only for 5 years because of those risks, meaning the non-bioidentical hormones. Would you ever think of giving a patient insulin for diabetes without testing the blood sugar? Would you? So why do so many people give hormones which are as powerful as insulin, sex hormones, without testing the sex hormones? So please do test the sex hormone levels. Even if you have to rely on blood tests, even though with the inaccuracies, it will at least give you way outliers. Because it is dangerous to have high progesterones and high estrogens and overtreat them, as it is harmful to have low. So please do test when you replace and titrate the amount you give based on the tests. In estrogen particularly, you don't want it, you don't want too much of it to go through the liver. Because if you give it orally, then all of it goes through the liver. Besides having to give more, it does metabolize, a lot of the metabolites of estrogen, too high amounts of estrogen metabolites, then float around in the tissues, which could be harmful. So therefore, the preferred route of estrogen is transdermal. And by the way, do get your compounding pharmacy, a reliable compounding pharmacy, to prepare your estrogen for you. Because if they don't make it into good quality lipophilic base carriers, then it doesn't get through the skin and aqueous doesn't work at all. Wasting your time using an aqueous carrier. The oral route, as I said, of estrogen has been implicated in breast cancers, especially even bioidenticals, so avoid the oral route. Progesterone, the preferable route for progesterone is oral, for the very reason that you want it to go through the liver first pass. Because when progesterone goes through the liver, it gets converted into a few forms, 3 in particular, that's able to then cross the blood-brain barrier. And you do want the benefits of progesterone on the brain. It hits the GABA receptors when it crosses the blood-brain barrier. It gives you a calming effect, helps you sleep. So progesterone is one that you do want to cross the blood-brain barrier. So it's better to give progesterone orally. And remember, half-life of progesterone is 6 hours. So give it last thing, just as the patient is getting into bed, not at dinner time. That's rare. Okay? And by the way, one of the earliest signs of a patient going towards menopause, or a man towards andropause, is when they have early morning awakening. They sleep or go to bed okay, they're able to fall asleep okay, but when they have awakening at 3 or 4 in the morning and not able to sleep for maybe 2 hours, that's one of the first signs of progesterone dropping, because you lose this effect on the brain.
What really got me onto the subject years and years ago was the fact that I was getting too many patients of mine being told that they've got normal thyroid levels, and they would obviously have just the basic TSH, T4 levels done, and they would categorically, and endocrinologists would actually say, well, your thyroid is right. And over the years, I've asked people, what does the thyroid really do? And some people come back and say, well, it's my metabolism. But in actual fact, how does it actually work? And what is its modus operandi? Well, we know that we have, obviously, 2 very important thyroid hormones. We have a T4, which is tyrosine with 4 iodine molecules around it. We also have T3, which is, has the deiodinase enzyme, has taken the one iodine molecule off the left-hand side, so we don't get a reverse T3. And that little T3 I want you to think of when you talk about D3, you must think of it as a little man. And his job, he's got a brain, he's an intellectual molecule in the body. So this little guy, T3 gentleman, he lives for a day and a half. So the minute he is made from the conversion of T4 to T3, he has 1.5 days to do his work. And his work is to make cake, to make energy. So what is the front door of the house? What is the thyroid receptor of the cell? That's how I'm wanting you to just jump in between, okay? So we all of a sudden have this house, and the front door is a stable door, so it's got a bottom part to it. And that bottom part is your iron profile. And that's why when you now go, after you've heard this, and you go and read the literature and Google the literature on thyroid and the effects of thyroid on the body and how people bring in ferritin, and then all of a sudden you're going to now understand it, what it's doing.
Of course, I'm starting to get to this whole understanding of the placebo response, the mind-body effect. But look at this. People in loving relationships have half the rate of heart disease. People with spiritual belief live 14 years longer than unbelievers. Happy people live 7 to 10 years longer than unhappy people. And this is not with optimizing the nutrient levels. Okay? This is just people who are having loving relationships and eating maybe even a terrible diet. So we need to be careful how we think about what we're doing. We need to make people happy. Brahms rule number 1 is change the patient's story. I want a patient to walk out with a smile on his face at the first consultation, because I already know that I've already done maybe 50% or more of the work. Optimists are 70% less likely to get heart disease. Dr. Joe Dispenza, who wrote the book on You Are the Placebo, very interesting book, can recommend it. He said the placebo is not just a relaxation response. The higher mind has the ability to target the problem with laser-like precision. This is not a general, non-specific process that resets the entire nervous system, but targets only that which the patient believes is the focus, and he does this with an elegant simplicity. The process is driven by consciousness and not by the thinking mind. Placebo cures are not less real than cures by medication. They're examples of neuroplasticity in action, mind changing the brain structure. The placebo response strengthens the brain wiring in the opioid-producing areas of the brain's pain system. This is not addicting, and you can show this on PET scans. What is the quantum mind and how to access it? Well, the quantum mind, which we're talking about consciousness, requires a meditative, peaceful state of being. A clear statement of what is required. A handing of this intent to a higher, non-thinking mind. A letting go with the knowing that the request will be acknowledged. This should be accompanied by a sense of joy and wonder, thankfulness and deep appreciation. The quantum doctor practices conscious medicine designed for people, not machines. What conscious medicine prescribes includes the mechanical, but extends also the domain of vitality and meaning, and even love. The way forward, the personal work of the health practitioner is to go to the deepest place within and begin to operate as a healer from that space. Otherwise, the doctor remains a mechanical medicine rather than a healer, co-creator, and alchemist. We must create an environment that encourages healing and not be afraid of the subjective. Be open-hearted, because that allows consciousness to flow through without thinking blocking the way. The healing process will always remain complex, and therefore humility and love should be the driving force of one's practice. I am lost in God, and God is found in me. Why look in all directions? Look inside. Thank you.
This brave attempt by the SA Society of Integrative Medicine, SASM, was a huge success, where minds were opened, friends were made, and the community expanded. We plan to repeat this bigger and better in 2020. Join SASM and keep up to date. Go to integrativemedicine.co.za.
Yeah, it was brilliant. The speakers were really interesting. I like the mix of the South Africa. We had a lot of local feedback, Africa, as well as globally, because there were some very interesting speakers from America as well, which I particularly enjoyed. It was also really good to see the suppliers from the industry that are here to support products and for testing, and I gained a lot from that as well.